You're staring at a price tag, maybe in a store or online, and you just get that feeling. Wait a second, can they really charge that much? It's such a common feeling, and in this explainer, we're going to find out the answer by looking at the actual laws designed to keep things fair. All right, here's our game plan. First, we'll look at why India even regulates prices. Then we'll uncover the so-called 7 sins of illegal pricing. After that, we'll talk about your rights with the Consumer Shield, the special rules for essentials like food and medicine, the all-important price tag rule, and finally, we'll sum it all up. Let's get into it. So, first question, why can't a business just charge whatever it wants? I mean, isn't that how a free market works? Well, in India, the government steps in for a few really big reasons. To manage the supply of goods, to stop prices from suddenly shooting up, and maybe most importantly, to protect a massive population from being taken advantage of. And look, the key thing to get here is that this isn't about crushing businesses. Not at all. It's about finding a balance, a sweet spot, where companies can innovate and make a profit, but where you and I, the consumers, are protected from shady practices. It's all about that balance. Okay, let's open up the rulebook. We're starting with a really foundational law, the Monopolies and Restrictive Trade Practices Act, or the MRTP Act. You can basically think of this as the chapter that lists all the big no-nos of pricing, the stuff that companies are absolutely not allowed to do. First up, we've got something called resale price maintenance. So imagine a big phone company tells every single store in the country, you cannot sell our new phone for less than 50,000 rupees. What happens? Suddenly, no shop can offer you a better deal. The competition is just gone. And that keeps prices artificially high for everybody, which is a huge red flag for the law. But here's the super important difference. A manufacturer can say, hey, the suggested retail price is 1,500 rupees. That's totally fine. The illegal line is crossed the second they say, you must sell it for this price, or you cannot sell it for less. It's that freedom for the store to give you a discount that the law is fighting to protect. Next up is a pretty sneaky one, collusive tendering. It's a fancy term, but it basically just means bid rigging. Picture this. A bunch of companies are supposed to be competing for a big government contract, but behind closed doors, they've already decided who's going to win. It makes the whole competitive bidding process a complete sham. So, how does this little conspiracy actually play out? Well, first, the competitors get together and secretly pick a winner. Then, the other companies, the losers, put in bids that are a total joke, way too high, or with terms that could never be accepted. This makes the pre-chosen winner's bid look like the most reasonable one, so they get the contract, but at a way higher price than they should have. Then you have something called predatory pricing, and it is just as ruthless as it sounds. A massive company might start selling a product for, say, 80 rupees, even though it costs them 100 rupees to make it. They're literally losing money on every single sale. Why? To drive their smaller competitors completely out of business. And once the coast is clear, what do you think happens? Yep, they are free to jack up the price to whatever they want. And the list goes on. The act also goes after things like price discrimination, where a company gives one dealer a way better price than another for no good reason. It also cracks down on those fake bargain deals that are really just designed to trick you. And of course, it targets monopolies that use their power to charge crazy high prices just because they can. So, we've seen all the rules that businesses have to follow. But what about you? What power do you have in all of this? Well, that brings us to the next major piece of the puzzle, the Consumer Protection Act. Think of this one as your personal shield. Seriously, this is where the whole game changes. Because this law isn't just a rule book for companies. It's a toolkit of rights for you, the consumer. It's what gives you the actual legal power to stand up and challenge a price that you know is wrong. So when is a price officially, legally excessive? The law gives you a fantastic checklist. A seller is breaking the law if they charge you more than the price that's fixed by another law, displayed on the item itself, printed on the package, shown on their own price list, or even more than the price you both just agreed to. Any one of those, that's your evidence. And if you have that evidence, you're not just stuck shouting into the wind. You have a real path to take action. The law created a whole system of consumer forums at the district, state, and even national level. These courts exist for one reason: to hear your complaint and give you a real judgment on issues just like being overcharged. Now, some things are just different. They're too important to be left completely to market forces. We're talking about the absolute essentials: food, medicine, fuel. For these crucial items, the law adds another even tougher layer of protection. And the cornerstone here is the Essential Commodities Act. Its mission is crystal clear: make sure that vital stuff is available to everybody at a fair price. It gives the government the power to prevent things like hoarding, where sellers might hide away supplies to create a fake shortage, all just to drive up the price. So let's say the government has to step in and buy these essential goods. How do they figure out a fair price? Well, there's an official order of operations. The first choice is always to try and land on an agreed price with the seller. If that doesn't work out, they'll use any existing government-controlled price. And only if neither of those are an option do they turn to the local market price as the last resort. And there are even more safeguards. The Drugs Control Act, for example, lets the government put a price cap on life-saving medicines. Another act gives them control over the prices of core industrial goods. We're talking steel, textiles, sugar, to make sure the basic building blocks of the economy don't get out of control. Okay, let's bring it all the way down from these big national laws to the most practical thing there is: the humble price tag. There are very specific rules that control exactly what information has to be on pretty much every packaged thing you buy. Think of this list as your personal power tool as a shopper. By law, all this info has to be right there on the package. But for our chat today, the absolute king is the last one: the maximum retail price, or MRP. That number must include all taxes, and it is the legal absolute limit. A seller cannot charge you one single paisa more. End of story. All right, we've walked through a whole lot of laws and rules here, so let's bring it home. What's the final tally? What's the one big idea you should really take away from all this? It really boils down to this single, powerful idea. Regulating prices in India isn't just some boring, technical exercise for businesses. As our source material puts it so well, it's about achieving bigger socioeconomic goals. In plain English, it's about building a marketplace that isn't just profitable, but is also fundamentally fair and equitable for everyone. And that leaves us with one final, very modern question to chew on. These laws were mostly written for a world of physical shops and paper price tags. But today, we live in an age of algorithms, of online flash sales, and surge pricing that can change by the minute. So are these old rules still enough to protect us and ensure a fair deal in this new world? Well, that's a thought for another day. Thanks for watching The Explainer.